Hello, in this video, we are going to focus on Sanford Harmony Lesson 3.3. This lesson is going to focus and explain that everyone uses communication bloopers and boosters. Specifically, we're going to be talking about the media. That means television shows, movies, things you see on social media. It is also important to recognize when others bloop and boost in our environment. Communication bloopers and boosters influence how we think, feel, and behave. It is important to recognize that communication bloopers and boosters are everywhere, including television. It's important to understand how communication bloopers and boosters influence people's thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Now, in this example, I just selected iCarly. I'm hoping many of you watched iCarly. If not, no worries at all. You will have the opportunity to select your own television show for this activity. Now, in this example here, the person who blooped, the person who made a mistake was Carly. Now, all I did was watch one episode of iCarly, and I actually recognized a lot of bloops and a lot of boosts. So she made some mistakes, and we know that we all do, but it's important that if we do make a mistake, we fix them using a booster. So Carly blooped. How did she bloop? Well, she interrupted. And notice when you watch your television show, identify what was the bloop that happened. Was it ignored, controlled, withdrew from, or interrupted? And who was blooped? Well, that happened to Sam. So Carly interrupted Sam. So when they say who blooped, that was Carly. She made the mistake. And who did that mistake affect? Well, Sam. So Carly interrupted Sam. And notice here it says Sam was excited to be invited to a party. But as he started to tell Carly about it, she interrupted and complained that she hadn't studied for the math test. Now let's go through what Sam is feeling right now and imagine how that feels when that person has a bloop happen to them. Well, her thoughts, I'm never going to get a chance to talk. How did she feel? Frustrated, annoyed. How did she behave? Well, she yelled at Carly. So notice this is not a great conversation they're having. People are upset and it has a negative influence on both characters. And no one is really happy in this situation because of the bloop. But instead, think about ways how this can be resolved and using some boosters, how this situation can be fixed. Now, your task in today's activity is to select any television show. You can pick your favorite show. I want you to watch a few minutes of that show. If you have time, you can watch the entire episode. When the show is over or even during the show, identify bloops and identify the boosters. Okay, so just like I showed you in that previous example, and if you need to go back to that in the video to go over that, you're welcome to do that. Identify who blooped. Identify characters that could potentially make a bloop. Who made a mistake? What did they do? How did they do it? Then check that off. And then write, well, who was blooped? Okay, who did this happen to? And also describe the situation. Your TV show that you select, I might not even be aware of the show. And regardless, you should explain that situation that happened. So if we do share this with the class, other people can understand that bloop that occurred. So that way we can all learn from these mistakes so we don't make them. And then just write the name of the character and explain how their thoughts, their feelings, and how did they react from this bloop after they were blooped. So take some time in the Google Forms that I did give you. You have the opportunity to fill in this chart in the Google Forms. So that way you can identify the bloop and recognize that these things do happen. But just as a reminder, when you do see it on television, that's not totally the real life situation. So that's giving you an example of things that could happen, but instead, when you see something on TV, some things you might want to follow and some things you might not want to follow. So it's important to recognize these bloops because then you might want to think to yourself, well, should that really be occurring? Should I ever be doing that in my life or should I not? And also when you see those boosts or good things happening in the television show, maybe you might also want to think, wow, that's a great thing to try in my life. That would be something really awesome. And I learned that from my television show. Now, we can't hide from the media, especially in this online world. So it's important when we're using social media, when we're watching TV, we're watching movies, we're able to identify these bloopers and these boosters as well, because many times we learn from the things we see through the media. And it's important to recognize, well, what are the good things and good things that I might want to use in my life? And unfortunately, the bad things as well, and recognize that's not a great thing. I should never be doing that. It's just for entertainment purposes. Now you're going to do this again, talking about the boosters. So you can even use the same example with the blooper and how it was resolved, or you can pick a totally new situation in the television show and identify a booster. So who communicated effectively? What character made a good decision? What did they do? What was the booster? How did they do that? Well, that's identifying the booster that occurred. Did they support that character? Were they facilitating a conversation? Did they negotiate? They came to a compromise. Were they listening to people? And to whom were they doing this to? What character? And don't forget to explain the situation and also explain how they thought, how they felt, and they behaved. And you're going to find when that booster happens, that's a good thing. You're going to see a positive outcome. And those characters that were communicating with each other had an excellent conversation. And in fact, that's usually when you get to a nice happy part in your TV show or movie. And those boosters are a good thing. And when you see those boosters, those are things that you might want to learn from and maybe try them in your life, because those are good things that we learn from the media. But again, it's very important that we're able to identify and recognize these boosters and bloopers throughout our life. And now in this virtual world, we do spend a lot of time on a screen, watching TV, movies, videos, this and that. And being able to recognize that whether you're in person or on the media, it's important to identify these boosters and bloopers, and also understand that everybody makes these boosters and bloopers. We do make mistakes, but it's important to recognize, well, how can we fix them? And it's important to learn from our mistakes so we don't make them again. If you choose to follow these boosters and always keep these in your mind, I am sure you will have a lot of positive experiences when you communicate with other people.